They say the southern highways hide secrets that the desert dust never managed to bury. And one of those secrets began with a photograph. A picture found in 1961 inside a rusted toolbox at a forgotten repair shop on the outskirts of Midland, Texas. The photo showed a tall, thin man wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a faint, unsettling smile. He was standing in front of an old gas station, staring straight at the camera, like he knew someone was watching him. At first glance, it looked ordinary, but when the picture was enlarged, strange shadows appeared behind him, shapes that seemed to unfold quietly, like wings. The mechanic who found it was named Robert Hall. He said the photograph was sealed in an envelope with a handwritten date, 1958, Route 191 Gas Company. He figured it was just an old customer, until one of his employees swore he'd seen the same man the night before, standing by the highway wearing the exact same coat and hat. Only this time, the worker claimed, something moved behind him, something that sounded like the slow rustle of wings. Rumors spread fast. Some said he was a drifter, just a quiet stranger passing through. Others swore he wasn't human at all, but something that pretended to be. And every time someone saw him, the same thing happened. A few days later, dead animals would be found along the roadside, their bodies marked by wounds no one could explain. For months, the police tried to track down the man in the hat. They visited gas stations, talked to truckers, checked motel registries. Nothing. No one with that description lived in the county. And yet, the reports kept coming. I saw him standing in the storm. He stopped right in front of my car and didn't move. I thought it was a scarecrow, until it blinked. Old folks started calling him the Hat Man. They said he only appeared when the air smelled like rust and the cats hid under cars. That if you stared too long, you'd hear a hum in your ears, like an engine far away starting up. And if you tried to speak to him, he'd smile, tip his hat, and vanish. No one knew where he came from, but everyone noticed the same pattern. After each sighting came a storm. And after the storm, abandoned cars, radios still playing, roofs scarred by something with claws. That photo, the one of the man at the gas station, was turned over to the police. Then it disappeared from their files. Only one copy remained, kept by the mechanic's son. Years later, he scanned it and uploaded it online. It went viral in paranormal forums under a new name, The Creeper. What's strangest is that in 2007, almost 50 years later, a truck driver claimed he saw the exact same man. He hadn't aged a day. He was walking slowly down Route 191, dragging his feet, watching the cars go by with that same faint, impossible smile. And when he passed an abandoned gas station, every cat nearby began to howl at once. Some say Jeepers Creepers was just a movie. Others believe someone in Hollywood heard these stories long before the cameras ever rolled. Because down here, in the southern highways, the myth of the man in the hat didn't start on a movie set. It started in the heat of the asphalt and the silence of the desert. By the late 1960s, a small regional chain called Route 191 Gas Company quietly shut down every one of its stations. No press release, no explanation, just gone. But locals around Midland told a different story. They said one of those gas stations, out in the middle of nowhere, miles from any town, was haunted by something strange. A man, tall and thin, always wearing the same long coat and wide-brimmed hat. Sometimes he stood beside the empty pumps, perfectly still, sometimes inside the building, facing the wall, as if waiting for someone who never came. Truckers said he looked ordinary from a distance, but the closer you got, the heavier the air felt. Engines would sputter, lights would flicker, and in the silence, you could hear a low metallic hum, like an idling engine somewhere under the ground. One driver, Don Walters, claimed he saw him twice. The first time, the man just stood there under the sign, silent. The second time, Don said he caught a glimpse of his face in the reflection of his windshield. The eyes were pitch black, and behind him, something moved. A shifting shadow, stretching out like folded wings. Soon, the same reports started coming from other towns. Always the same details: abandoned gas stations, stray cats, and that smell of burnt metal. People began saying the man didn't drive or walk. He just appeared wherever fear was thick enough. Some said he traveled with the storms. Others said he was the storm. A local journalist named Harold Bryant became obsessed with the legend. He spent weeks interviewing witnesses until someone gave him a lead. A woman named Mary Lou Cross, a self-taught psychic living outside Abilene. She claimed she dreamed about the Hat Man since childhood, dreams so vivid she could smell the gasoline. In an old tape recording of that interview, you can hear Mary Lou say,
"He's not a man, he's a consciousness. He shifts shapes so people won't recognize him. But the cats, they always know."
Mary Lou told Bryant that the entity returned every 23 years to collect what belonged to him. When he asked what that meant, she fell silent, then left the room. She came back carrying a glass jar marked with black symbols. Inside was a hardened piece of cloth and a massive feather, too large to come from any bird known to Texas. "He fears cats because they see what we can't," she said. "And never say his true name aloud. That's how you invite him." Bryant never published that story. Days later, Mary Lou vanished. Her front door was found wide open, lights still on. Outside, a group of stray cats sat lined up, all staring at the same point in the dark. Inside, on her table, was a single sketch: a tall man with a hat, and behind him, two massive wings stretching far beyond the page. Since that night, sightings of the Hat Man became rarer, but never stopped. Every few years, someone driving through the desert would claim to see him again, standing motionless under a broken sign, always near a gas station, always before a storm. And every time, the cats in the area would vanish without a trace. In 1972, Sheriff Arthur D. Monroe reopened the old case of the Hat Man after a string of disturbing accidents along Route 191. Over 3 weeks, 5 vehicles were found abandoned on the highway. Each one had the keys still in the ignition, the radio playing static, and deep parallel gashes torn into the metal roofs. 3 marks every single time. The official reports blamed wild animals or vandalism. But in his private journal, Monroe wrote something different. "No animal leaves cuts this precise. Whatever this thing is, it comes from above." A few days later, 2 unmarked cars arrived from out of state. Federal agents walked into the sheriff's office, boxed up every document, and drove away without a word. When Monroe asked where they were taking the files, they said, "Washington." He never saw them again. Years later, a retired deputy claimed the boxes were never shipped anywhere. He swore he saw men burning them behind the county courthouse that same night. If that's true, one piece of evidence somehow survived. an audio tape recorded by a ham radio operator who had picked up the police frequency by accident. The tape begins with static, then a voice, frantic, distorted, shouting over the radio hiss. "It's on top of the truck. I repeat, it's..." And then, silence, followed by a deafening metallic roar, like a massive engine revving underwater. When sound technicians tried to clean the audio, they discovered something hidden under the noise. Breathing, rhythmic, heavy, not quite human. And beneath that breathing, a low whisper repeating again and again. "I come back when fear smells like metal." The phrase matched what witnesses had described for decades. The strange metallic scent that hung in the air after every encounter. But there was something else on the tape, right at the very end. A sharp screech, high-pitched and short, the kind of sound a microphone should be able to record. When the waveform was analyzed, it formed a pattern that looked eerily like a pair of wings outstretched. A month later, Sheriff Monroe resigned. In his final interview, he said only one thing about the case. It wasn't a killer, it was a collector, and it doesn't hunt for food, it hunts for memory. No one understood what he meant. A few weeks after his resignation, Monroe's pickup was found at the edge of the desert. Door open, headlights on, the radio still humming. Across the windshield, 3 perfect claw marks. The federal investigation vanished from public record. But the tape, somehow, resurfaced decades later on early internet forums dedicated to paranormal mysteries. They called it the Midland tape. Listeners claimed that if you played it alone at night, right before the last few seconds, you could hear a faint exhale, like someone standing right behind you. In 2007, almost 30 years after the Midland tape was recorded, a young film student named Elliot Graham decided to make a short documentary about local legends. He'd grown up hearing about the Hat Man, but assumed it was just an urban myth, a desert ghost story passed around to scare truckers. He couldn't have been more wrong. Elliot and 3 classmates drove out one summer night, carrying cameras, a generator, and a single plan to record interviews and location shots of abandoned gas stations along Route 191. They wanted atmosphere-long shadows, broken neon lights, and the stillness of a Texas highway at 3 a.m. They found the perfect spot, a collapsed building with a half-rusted sign that still read, Route 191 Gas Company. At first, everything went as planned. They filmed the empty lot, the sand-covered pumps, the stray cats darting through the darkness. Elliot stood behind the main camera, narrating how local stories spoke of a man in a hat who appeared before storms. But then, one of his friends pointed toward the edge of the frame. Behind the gas station, something was standing, tall, motionless, too still to be human. They called out, thinking it was a traveler, maybe a homeless man, but it didn't respond. Instead, it stepped forward, one slow movement at a time, until it stood right under the station's flickering light. From head to toe, it was black coat, boots, hat, but the hat cast no shadow. When Elliot zoomed in, the camera distorted. The audio filled with static and a deep mechanical hum, like an engine idling underground. Then the screen went dark. The next morning, their van was found 2 miles away, doors open, headlights still on. No sign of the crew. Inside the van was the camera, damaged but still recording. The police labeled the case missing persons presumed runaway. But a technician who reviewed the footage privately leaked fragments online in 2012. The video was short, less than a minute long, but unforgettable. The camera shakes as the operator breathes hard, running. Then it drops to the ground, facing upward. For 2 seconds, the lens catches something moving above. A figure with a hat and a coat, spreading what look like enormous wings made of torn fabric and metal. The footage was deleted within days, but hundreds of users had already downloaded it. They began comparing frames to scenes from the movie Jeepers Creepers. The resemblance was undeniable. The same hat, same movements, same metallic hum. Only one problem. The Jeepers Creepers movie was released in 2001. This video was from 2007. Some said it was a copycat, others a hoax. But a few people went digging into old interviews and discovered that the director of Jeepers Creepers had once visited Texas in the 1990s researching Southern folklore. Was the film inspired by the real thing? Or was it a warning disguised as fiction? Since that leak, truckers along Route 191 have reported seeing strange shapes flying over the highway before storms. Some claim they've heard whispers through their CB radios, faint, metallic voices repeating the same phrase from the old tape. "I come back when fear smells like metal." And with that, a new generation gave the legend a modern name. No longer the Hat Man. Now, everyone called it the Creeper. The last confirmed sighting of the Hat Man happened in 2022 near a small Texas town called Coyanosa. A group of teenagers was filming a short horror video for social media, the kind you shoot on your phone at midnight, just to freak out your friends. In the clip, they stood laughing in front of an abandoned gas station, its sign half broken, the desert wind cutting through the mic. At first, it looked normal, until one of them watched the footage later that night. Behind the group in the far corner of the frame, a tall figure stood perfectly still. A man with a hat, not moving, not blinking. And here's the thing. The kids swore no one was there when they filmed. But his reflection appeared in the window of a truck right next to them. The video was deleted the next morning. Every account that shared it went private within hours. And 2 weeks later, the gas station was demolished. Locals said the night before the demolition, a deep mechanical sound echoed across the desert, and every cat in town began to scream. No one knows for sure what the Hat Man is. Some believe it's a creature the same being that inspired Jeepers Creepers. Others think it's something older, something that isn't alive in the way we understand it. A force that wears fear like a disguise. A memory that grows stronger each time someone speaks its name. Because every generation sees him again, in gas station mirrors, in the corner of a camera frame, or high above the desert when lightning splits the sky. Paranormal researchers have noticed something strange. Every time a new story or video about the creeper goes viral, new sightings follow within days, almost as if the legend itself is listening, waiting for the right moment to step back into the world. Maybe he isn't made of flesh or bone, maybe he's made of fear, a thought with wings, a shadow that remembers. So if you're watching this at night, and your lights flicker, or your cat suddenly stares at the wall, don't panic, just listen. Because out here, in the southern highways, the wind still carries a faint metallic hum, like an engine trying to start after decades of silence. And if you listen long enough, you might hear it whisper. Have you ever seen something you couldn't explain? A shadow that moved when nothing was there? A sound in the sky that no one else heard? Or maybe someone who looked human, but wasn't? Share your story in the comments. Tell us what you've seen, what you felt, Or that legend your hometown still refuses to talk about. Because maybe, just maybe, somewhere in all those stories, the real Hat Man of Midland is waiting to be born again. I come back when fear smells like metal. Have you ever seen something you couldn't explain? A shadow that moved when nothing was there? A sound in the sky that no one else heard? Or maybe someone who looked human, but wasn't? Share your story in the comments. Tell us what you've seen, what you've felt, or that legend your hometown still refuses to talk about. Because maybe, just maybe, somewhere in all those stories, the real Hat Man of Midland is waiting to be born again.